Hello, hobby friends, and welcome to today's episode of Hobby Talk. My name is David Baez, and in today's episode, we're going to dive into the world of sport card auctions. With that being said, I'm excited to welcome Calvin Arnold, Consignment Director of Robert Edward Auctions. Calvin, welcome to Hobby Talk. What's up, buddy?
Hey, David, how are you? Thanks for having me today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you on board here, bud. So I like to always kind of start my interviews, getting to understand a little bit about what gets us into the hobby itself. So outside of maybe our 9 to 5 in this case, right? So if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe a little bit about your personal collection and what got you into the hobby.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been in the hobby now, 35 years. I collected obviously as a kid, like any normal youngster. And as I graduated high school, I tried to figure out what I like to do. And, I've always loved the aspect of collecting and that. And I figured if I could get into that kind of world, I didn't know if it existed or if you could even, make a life out of it or a career out of it. But fortunately, when I graduated, I ran across the card shop that actually had a help wanted sign in the window, and I said, "Oh God, this is perfect, right?" So I go in, got the job, and as they say, the rest is history a little bit.
That's awesome. I'm kind of jealous. I've always, I think I speak for a lot of us. We love the hobby so much, and one day we say to ourselves, "Hey, we're gonna do something. Get open up our own brick and mortar or something like that." So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Um, so tell me a little bit how you kind of like transitioning into the world of Robert Edwards. Can you how did that all start?
Yeah, so I actually worked at a card shop, like I said, in 1985 when I graduated high school. I worked there for about 5 years, and then I moved into a different side of the hobby. I actually got connected with a guy that had a card shop in Southern California, in Long Beach, and I became part owners at a very young age. So I had my own card shop in Long Beach. I did that for a number of years, and then moved on to a guy actually came into the card shop and was looking to start something on the wholesale side of things. World that I wasn't even, didn't even know existed really. I mean, I was just always in the retail space, as they say, right? Mom and pop card shop or whatnot. And
Right.
then got connected with him, and he did unopened cases. That was his thing. He was selling. We were selling hundreds and hundreds of cases. I remember seeing over 100 cases of 90 leaf. 92 Donruss as well. So that it was a mixed bag, but yeah, I kind of did that, and then I took a little bit of a hiatus from the business, but then got connected in the auction world in the middle 2000s and started working for a major auction house. Kind of got back into it, refound my love of the industry and collecting and working in this business. And from there, I went to another auction house, and here I am with REA. So I found fortunately REA, I found a great landing spot. I love REA. I think it's an incredible company, and we really take pride in helping consigners.
That's great. And, nice segue here into, REA itself. Can you give us a little history about REA, its start and transition into current day?
Yeah, I mean, REA's been around for several decades. Obviously, I've been here only a couple of years, but REA's been around for several decades, as I had said. And their focus before was really 19th century pre-war material. We did one auction a year. We've expanded that. We went to 2 auctions a year, and now we're currently at 3 auctions a year. So we do a spring, summer, and fall auction, and we've expanded into quite a bit of material. I mean, I brought pretty much unopened as a segment to the auction when I came aboard, and we're pretty heavy in pre-war, post-war cards, modern. We do unopened memorabilia. We do advertising. I mean, anything you can pretty much think of in the world of sports, including non-sports. We do some currency. We do coins. We do comics a little bit. So I mean, we're pretty diverse in terms of what we do and what we carry. We have a very large client base that not only domestically but internationally, that has a very wide collecting range. So we're able to, help a lot of people in those areas.
Well, I can definitely tell you, Calvin, I am also a customer, and I guess I should personally thank you for bringing Unopened into the world of REA because as a result, I buy quite a few items. I mean, I salivate. When I look at some of those unbelievable packs and cellos that you've had, even in the previous auction, those '60s packs, and God, a lot of us unopened nerds were just constantly talking about your auctions. You guys do a fantastic job.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I appreciate being able to help you guys spend your hard-earned money.
Hey, when you
But
have that kind of product, we don't mind.
yeah, well, I guess the guys are going to be pretty excited for this upcoming fall auction. We're going to have probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 unopened lots. So,
so, so what you're telling me is I should start stocking up my pennies now, huh?
100%. I mean, I would say get it ready, get the treasure chest ready for
Yeah.
some pretty incredible material.
Wow, that teaser you just threw at me, you just threw me off. I'm like sitting there like, all right, I need to increase my budget stat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got some great stuff coming up. I mean, we got a full range of material, anything from real vintage packs, a few vintage boxes in the various sports. Honeyman, no, we don't have any vintage hockey. I'm sorry, but we are working on it diligently. Walmart was
Yeah.
actually out of vintage hockey when I went, so but no, we're working
Oh,
very
that's funny.
diligently all the time. We're constantly scouring the country and reaching out to former clients and trying to look for the best material. REA has a reputation of getting some really incredible materials. So,
That you do. And that's perfect segue to the next question I have for you, buddy. Can you share with us, one of your favorite hobby finds? And why was it one of your favorite?
yeah, it's a great question. I mean, there's a lot of interesting things that we come across in this hobby, and so pinpointing it to one is it's going to be hard. But I think my favorite one at this point is I was able to meet a guy. Basically, he was a former client, and I reached out to him. I'd been calling him a few times, and finally was able to connect with him. He had a collection. I didn't really understand the depth of that collection. I mean, I knew that he had some unopened. Of course, it's in the world of unopened, but he collected unopened football, and he had sent over a couple of things as we were talking. He said he had a '62 Topps football wax box, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty unique, and it's pretty
You
rare.
don't see that every day.
No, you definitely don't. So it obviously piqued my interest, and as we got more into the conversation, he let a few other things go. So I started getting the sense that this guy really had an impressive collection. I was able to figure out a time to meet with him, and of course, he said, "Yeah, that's fine. You can come on over, but listen, I don't think I'm ready to do anything right now." I said, "That's completely fine. Listen, what I want to do is come over. I want to introduce myself, so that when you're ready, you have a face to the name for REA." And so what happened is I was able to meet him. We went out to his storage unit. He opened a storage unit, and I was blown away. This guy had unopened football boxes stacked
Wow.
on the ceiling.
It's like the Carmina Burana just started playing as the door slowly opened.
Absolutely, it was just an incredible sight. So,
Wow.
we were pulling all these storage bins out of this unit, and every storage bin held untold treasures. I mean, we're just pulling out box after box after box. I mean, some boxes that he had bought in the mid 2000s that
Wow.
were still in the shipping box from the
Wow.
auction house he bought it from. So he had taken a big interest in football. He realized the potential in that sport because it was undervalued at the point, and it was anything from a 1954 Bowman unopened wax box all the
Wow.
way to the present. I mean, he had 6 or 8 boxes of '68 tops, 6 or 8 boxes of '69s. He had a couple '70s. He had 7 boxes of '76 football. When it was all said and done, I mean, this collection was auctioned over a couple of years, and it ended up being close to $1 million. So, I mean,
Unbelievable.
it was absolutely unbelievable. I was climbing in a storage unit for an entire day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I was gonna say, I'm jealous. That would have been like my dream day right there, just checking that stuff out, even if I'm not buying it, right?
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
mean, you get really caught up. I mean, as a collector, it's, you got to try to separate yourself a little bit because, sometimes you only have so much time with consigners and you got to kind of work diligently through the process. But as a collector, you want to just sit and enjoy the material. So
Yeah.
literally you could be with a consigner for days just talking about, the collection itself and how he obtained it and, what was his motivation and, why did he focus on football and things like that. And we do a little bit of that because, I mean, again, I mean, it provides some context to the
Right.
collection when we go to auction. And I mean, look, in this business, I believe that stories sell pieces. I mean, people love stories. They love to know where something came from, what the history of that piece was,
Right.
maybe why that guy collected it and so forth, because I think they start taking an emotional and personal connection to that piece. And so it kind of drives the hobby, knowing as much as you can about the collection or piece.
Yeah, Calvin. I mean, I very often in the comments in the Facebook groups that we're in and all that, I always tend to call our world of unopened pieces of history, and that's what I think makes it so easy for me to like not open them. I just love the story behind it, and when I buy maybe a specific pack from a specific collector, and some of the folks that I buy from, it's I know they submitted it. I know there's a story behind it. They share that story with me, and it makes it that much more personal and valuable to me on so many levels. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
100%.
I think for you, it's got to be amplified because, to your point, right? I was going to ask you that question, right, about how you're in these finds and talking with that collector, and just as fun as it is to like look at these boxes and look at these pieces of history, the story that you're hearing as you're doing your, let's say, your job, right? It's that's precious, that's valuable in and of itself, right?
Yeah. No, 100%. I think sometimes what happens is, this hobby is kind of, if you think about the cycle of the hobby, you look at, we collected as kids, so now we're in our peak earning years. We might have kids that enjoy the hobby, and now we're teaching them what we did when we were a kid, and so they're enjoying the hobby. And so when you look at stories, I think sometimes it allows the next person who takes custody of that item to carry on that story. So,
Yeah.
I think that all those things mixed together, really, I mean, the collecting part of it, the accumulation part of it is one aspect, I believe. I believe the other aspect is the storytelling, the personal connection, the emotions that are behind it, where you really feel a part of what you're collecting. You have some kind of emotional attachment, so to speak. Football,
Right.
guy might buy a piece out of the auction because he remembers when his dad took him to a Cleveland Browns game or a Rams game or something of that nature, or a Dodgers game, an Angels game, whatever it might be. He
Mhm.
might remember that, and it brings back those memories for him. So through that piece, they connect. They
Yeah.
connect only as father and son, or daughter and son, or whatever. They collect and they connect through the collection itself.
Yeah, no, well said. I think, all of us have this deeply rooted connection into it, to the hobby, and every piece that I like those, God, every piece I have, Calvin, I try to connect it to something, whether it's my own personal, my childhood, or with my father who collected before me,
Right.
or that story of a good friend of mine and how he, his first baseball game was, with this player, and they hit this great hit to end the game. And it's like, there's just so much, like, there's so much value to that piece of it as well. And I think that's even more so why I've always gravitated to this particular hobby, unopened, and sports cards in general. There's just
Yeah.
some great stories behind it.
Yeah,
So,
100%. I mean, because if you look at the world of unopened, I think one of the things that most every single person that's listening to this or that collects can attach themselves to is the fact that as kids, what did we do? We bought unopened packs from a liquor store, a grocery store,
right.
hobby store, whatever it might be. that was kind of your first foray into the hobby itself, and then it grew from there. Then all of a sudden you go to shows, and then you're starting to see the vastness of what's available to you. But realistically, most people's entry into the hobby is by buying packs. I mean, that's what it was for me. I,
Yeah.
my mom would take me to the local Zodi's here, and we'd be looking for shoes, but all I'd see is a rack.
Right.
I'm like, can I get one of those? And it would be like,
Yeah.
hey, if you're good, we can get you one or whatever. But
Yeah. Yeah. That's
we
when we behave the most, right, Calvin?
we only behave because of that, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. My store, by the way, was Woolworth.
Yeah.
It was like the tail end of the Woolworth era, and in the town that I spent a lot of years in, there was one close by. And when my mother would go on the weekends just to grab whatever, I'd join her, and it was the same thing. Like, hey, if you behave, whatever. And sure enough, I was getting my fill of 80, 7, 88s, 89s. The really valuable stuff, Calvin.
Valuable stuff, the Gary Sheffield rookies and so
Oh
forth.
yeah, I was all about like being a Mets fan and all that. It was all about Greg Jeffries and Kevin Elster.
Yeah, percent. No, I mean
Yeah,
that's the fun of. I mean, I think that's part of collecting. I mean, collecting nowadays, we've kind of segued into value. I mean, a lot of people look at the hobby as in terms of value. How much is this worth? Is generally the first question.
right.
And I think there's a combination for the true collector. I mean, I think value does play a part in the equation, but I think it's more about the appreciation for the item that you're collecting.
Yeah, well said. Calvin, let me ask you, and this is a question I asked from Mike as well in a previous interview. What's your take now on the current world of the hobby in general? I'm not even going to say just unopened, right? Sports cards, memorabilia, and with that asterisk, if you will, of the COVID era, like how I can imagine what you've been seeing firsthand. What's your current take on this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, the market's very interesting, right? I mean, coming into February of this year and moving into March, as we started experiencing a serious it wasn't called a pandemic at that time, but a serious virus, and starting to shut down the country for health reasons. Your natural inclination is to think, oh, there goes the hobby, right? I mean, as we progressed through it and people were losing their jobs and things like that.
Right.
And it's ironic. REA had an auction that opened up at the end of March, right as the lockdowns hit, and then closed the middle of April. And we had a lot of concerned consigners, but Brian made some very good decisions in terms of the way that he handled the situation. And when the dust settled, we did over $9 million. We
Wow.
were stunned.
Yeah.
We were expecting somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 million, and we did just over 9 million. And the reason
That's
I say that
fantastic.
is because it just illustrated that I think the hobby is resilient in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I think that yes, it does use discretionary income, but I think that the hobby for some people is a way to escape a little bit. It's a way to go back to their younger years, to think about the things when they were 10 or 11 or 12. I think the lockdowns created a situation where people were at home more. Maybe they pulled down the cards out of their attic, out of their closet, out from underneath their bed, whatever it was, and they started remembering the enjoyment that they got when they were collecting as a kid. So I think those things have a way of, bringing people back to the hobby. And I mean, we've seen that in short order. Like in the last 8 months, the hobby has grown exponentially. And not only have the prices risen, but I think the depth of collectors has increased immensely. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah, I think the broad base collectors has grown exponentially. I mean, I think that has a lot to do with, look, social media has been a great avenue in terms of, bringing awareness to the hobby and bringing collectors into the hobby. We have guys now that, I was just reading an article. We have a guy, Steve Aoki, right? He's a DJ here in Las
Yeah.
Vegas.
Right.
Guy collects. I mean, he
Big
collected.
time collector, I've heard too, right?
Yeah, and now he does breaks. And so when you start to see, I think what happens is when you start to see these prices go up exponentially. I mean, we've had a few seven-figure card sales in the last couple of months in the hobby that have gained some really mainstream
Yeah.
publicity. And so when
Yeah.
you start to see that as an outsider, you start to realize, wait a minute, I think I need to investigate this. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember collecting cards as a kid, but I only remember it being kind of mom and pop-ish.
Right.
Um, there really, like, really, was there a card that sold for seven figures? That's insane. So I think
Yeah.
it starts to really get people to investigate it. Just like if you think about what we do, and we start to see a crazy result in another area, whether it be Bitcoin or something like that, we start to take notice, and you go and investigate those things to see if it's something that is worthwhile or something that you'd be interested in. But
Right.
with that being said, I think the market is as strong as ever. I mean, I think that there's opportunities at every level in this market. There's opportunities at the very, very high end for people who have the financial wherewithal. There's opportunities in the middle of the market where you don't have as much money, and there's still opportunities for guys that just want to have fun with it. That's the beauty, I think, of this business, is it's not just regulated to guys that have a lot of money. I think there's a broad base of people that can take advantage of this market. And none of us have a crystal ball, but I certainly don't see a slowdown anytime soon. I think
Yeah, I agree with you on that, Calvin. I don't see it at all. I think it's more popular than ever, and the new base is a big factor for sure.
Yeah, it's 100%. And you start to see, like, you start to see things like, these companies starting to come into this space that are doing fractional shares, right? Almost like a commodity, almost like a
Right.
stock.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't own Amazon, but I can own a piece of Amazon, right? I
Right.
can't own Wagner or 52 Mantle and a PSA 8 or 9 that's a $500,000 or 3
Yeah.
million for a 9. But at $25 or $100 a share, I can own 10 shares.
Yeah.
You know,
Interesting.
so
Interesting. You mentioned that too. Like they're actually, it's like fully licensed.
totally,
SEC.
completely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. They're buying shares. It's amazing,
yeah,
right?
yeah. They had to go through all the regulatory steps, just like a normal asset class. But
Yeah.
again, I think that the ability in today's market is still, I don't know if I want to say infancy, but certainly if you think back, 1980 was 40 years ago. 40 years ago, it was really the card market. It wasn't even memorabilia. So memorabilia really had not been a thing 40 years ago. I think we're seeing that a little bit in unopened specifically, is where it's still, in my opinion, in the infancy. If you look at the late 70s, which is over 40 years old, you can buy unopened packs for a couple $100, or
Right.
$250, which can contain some pretty significant cards. So I
Mhm.
still think as the hobby grows, and right now it's growing, I think that the collectibles become more important, more valuable, and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, well said. I think it's just, amazing what's happened, and one of the things I was touching on with Mike as well in the previous interview was about the fact that sports was shut down. And so that was another big factor, I think, into people kind of, looking into the memorabilia sports card market
Yeah.
and creating that connection there and reading up and seeing, wow, this looks like a lot of fun. So you started getting those that curiosity, and forget it. After it's like once they were hooked, that's it, like they're not looking back.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think that it gave us a good visual about how connected we are to sports. I
Yeah.
mean, I think card market, memorabilia market is an extension of that. I mean, again, you look at the fact that neither one of us are going to be a professional sports player, or at least I know I'm not.
Yeah,
Maybe
no, same
in
here.
your world you can, but softball with a keg at third is about the best I'm going to get. So.
Yeah, that makes two of us.
Yeah. So I think this is their way of being able to connect to a sport that they love. They'll watch the players. I mean, obviously for us, in our age group, we collected cards because we love looking at the stats on the back and following
Right.
our players. I mean, now with, again, the internet, social media, and things like that, it's a little bit easier to do, but there's still that connection. It's still the reason why somebody wants, a Mike Trout jersey, because they can't be Mike Trout, but they can certainly connect to the game. So
Yeah.
through.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Um, so Calvin, I always like to end my interviews with a couple of questions that are kind of a little bit outside the box, little fun questions, if you will. So I got two for you.
All right.
You're all right. So my first one for you is if you had to give up your, and I know you have a personal collection, as just from offline conversations. So if you had to give up your entire personal collection, all of it,
Yep.
and you could only keep one item, what would it be and why?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, it's one that's tough because I do have a lot of things in the collection that I really enjoy, but I think probably the one thing that I would not give up, I give up everything, and this item is not going to be the most valuable, but it has a lot of personal attachment to me, and that would be my 1979 top set. I give up everything except for that set. So the reason why is because that's the only thing that my parents bought me card related, and they bought it for me for Christmas in 1979. So, and I still have it.
Very cool.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
unfortunately, my parents aren't with me any longer, so it's my connection to them, and that's why I would hang on to that. That's going.
That's a fantastic answer, and it really kind of just echoes everything we were just talking about earlier, Calvin, about the connection to the hobby. So it's not even like about value, it's just about what it means to us. So I love that. That's fantastic. You got to show me that one day if you don't mind.
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
Yeah.
listen, I've had it since my parents paid $7 for that set.
Yeah, that's yeah. That's a little bit. It's worth a little bit more than that now.
Yeah, but it's worth a ton. I
Yeah.
would I listen. I would be sad giving up all my stuff, but that'd be the one thing I would hang on to.
Very cool, Calvin. So my last question for you, buddy, is outside of sports card memorabilia, what's like one hobby or project that you enjoy doing and why?
Yeah, I spend so much time in this hobby. I mean, from a standpoint of, collecting personally and looking for things for my own collection, and, helping REA build great auctions. I don't have a lot of time outside of this hobby at this point. But the one thing that I do enjoy when I do get away to be able to do something outside of the hobby, I love playing poker, and one of
Cool.
one of the reasons I love doing that is, for me, it's a mental game. I mean, I love the mental acuity of it. I love being able to try to figure out, things or dynamics within the game itself. So it's, I know some guys just play to play, and that's great. I play to try to win. I'm highly strung in the competitive nature, but I love the
No,
mental.
nothing wrong with that.
I love the aspect of trying to figure things out. I think I always approach things where, no matter what it is in my life, I try to figure things out, and not only how to do something better, how to do it more efficiently. I guess I have this just weird way of like always wanting to figure something out. So I would say poker's been that for me, in something that I like to do. That's something that I like to do outside of sports. But
Very cool.
realistically, I mean, for the next several years, I'm going to be almost 90 to 100% just doing this. So
Right.
provides this provides a ton of enjoyment for me as well.
Very cool. So, Calvin, what you're trying to say in a nutshell is that if I put together a hobby networking group online poker game one of these weekends, you're in?
I might be persuaded to. So
I love poker too, buddy. I wish I could. It's been a while for me, but yeah, I've God, it's I used to love going down to Atlantic City when I ever had a chance and just sit at the tables and play Hold'em and Omaha. So you kind of just in saying that, you just reminded me of some great
reignited,
memories.
reignited some passion there for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
think
what
we need to
time
do
game?
that.
it's pretty easy for me, but I
Yeah.
got to tell you, with everything that's happened, obviously this year, it's been a little difficult. I've played less this year than I have in past years. So
Yeah.
it was really weird. I mean, this is the first year they didn't have the World Series of Poker, and I've played it
Yeah, that's right.
every year since 2006. So, but yeah, it's we'll definitely have to get the game together for sure. So.
Yeah, yeah, I'm a little intimidated. You're like WSOP level, so I
Uh,
already know I'm giving you my money, but I'm all right with it.
Listen, I mean, it's not easy to navigate those fields, so it's
Yeah.
pretty intense. You can be really good and still get crushed. But
Yeah, yeah.
no, it's one thing that I've really enjoyed. But like, listen, I mean, I enjoy this hobby. I enjoy the tight knit group that we have on vintage waxing packs, and you know, it's enjoyable. I can talk the hobby 24/7, 365 without taking a break. Is
Yeah, same here.
I enjoy, you know, the stories, and like what I told you is, you know, the how somebody thinks about something within the hobby. I mean, just yesterday I was sitting there looking at the PSA pop reports, like, you know, okay, what's the next thing, you know? So, you
Yeah,
know, always kind of looking for, you know, the things that
the
are
trends, right.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
listen, I mean, I really think that, you know, I know this is kind of, we're segueing a little bit out of the question, but I really think as I was searching yesterday, you know, there's some really good areas of value in unopened. I mean, I think you know, the 80s hockey, you know, especially OPG,
Right.
you know, 70s football, I still think there's a lot of movement there. I mean, if you think back, you know, I was 18 in 1985, and the reason I say those particular areas is because in 1985, 98% of the people collected strictly baseball. That was it. Football, hockey, basketball, they were all afterthoughts.
Right.
Nobody player basketball. You could give it away. You could buy the stars of those three sports for pennies on the dollar. It was all baseball, 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 and that's
That's
why
right.
people 86 tops baseball wax boxes versus 86 Fleer basketball wax boxes. So
Yeah.
if you think about the amount of production that's out there, you know, I think that in the coming years we could see some really big movement in those two areas. I mean, if you think about the great hockey stars, I mean, a Jordan rookie from '86 is $100,000 in the PSA 10.
That's right.
A new rookie is 15,000. That makes no sense to me, and I guarantee you, there's less produced of O-Pee-Chee 85 O-Pee-Chee hockey than there is 86 Flair basketball. So
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. You know, I it's funny you mentioned something. It just triggered something, and I think you were on that one of those COVID calls that we had. We're just talking to hobby, and I shared, I think, a story with the group about that same Woolworth that I was mentioning earlier, and how I gravitated toward 88 Fleer when the store manager, who was already so used to seeing me around all the time buying cards, had on clearance. He just couldn't get rid of them. Imagine they were 2 years old already. He had boxes of 86 Fleer basketball. Was willing to sell me the box at like $10 or 12, whatever it was, but it was like clearance. Here, take it. And I
yeah,
was like, no way, I want my Fleer.
yeah,
And
no, and that's the thing is you could buy those packs for 10 cents a pack, you know, in most distribution outlets. But
yeah,
you know, it's crazy. That's why, like, I mean, so I guess it kind of ties back to the question of I spend a lot of time in this hobby. So
yeah, yeah. No, and with that being said, Calvin, I can't thank you enough, and I hope I can bring you back soon, and we could talk some other pieces of the hobby.
I would
Um,
love to. Anytime, David.
yeah,
This is a lot of fun, and I hope somebody gets some value out of it.
yeah, absolutely. Thanks again, Calvin Arnold, Robert Edward Auctions. You could see the auction link below, the website link below, and anything else you want to add in terms of dates coming up.
The fall auction opens up November 20th and closes December 6th. So there's going to be over 3,000 lots in this auction.
Awesome. I just added it to my calendar.
Great
Thanks again.
speaker. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for watching today's episode, guys. Before you go, real quick, if you could click that like button and that subscribe button for me, I will greatly appreciate it, guys. It's just going to help grow the hobby networking group. And I promise I'm going to keep on bringing that awesome content your way. I'll be watching those comments. Let me know what you guys want, and I will do my best to deliver, guys. Thank you so much. Very humble for your time. Very appreciative. Go on hobbynetworkgroup.com. You'll see we're on Twitter. We are on Instagram. Very soon on Facebook, as well as podcasts to come super soon. And I'll share those links on the website. Thanks again, guys, and have a great day. Take care.